This is CG Ruthless Sports. I will be brutally honest. Ain't nothing but being brutally honest. Coming at you with another video.
Ladies and gentlemen, my apologies. Something just happened. Please welcome Suneil, So Real Sports Talk. What's up, bro?
What is up, my man? Thank you so much for having me on right now. I appreciate it, man.
No problem, man. Where can they find you on social media platform?
Yeah, so my Twitter is at So Real Suneil. You got the YouTube actually streaming on the bottom, So Real Sports Talk TV. If you just go to my Twitter, Instagram, there's links in there to my YouTube channel, and yeah, that's where you could find me. 49er content, do regular streams with different guys that are in the little circle. But I'm glad, my first time here on your channel, man. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, it's an honor just to get you on for the first time, man. How long have you done your channel?
Consistently, it's been, this is the first year. So I started, I think, in the middle of the season last year or beginning of the season. I don't remember. And then I took like a little hiatus because I had some stuff with work that I had to do. And then now I'm back to being more regular and stuff like that. So maybe just a little bit under a year, right at that year mark.
Oh, that's good to know, man. Like sometimes it takes time. Sometimes work schedule's in the way and it kind of cuts you off on your time and it just comes and goes. But, sometimes it's the perfect timing to get to your channel.
For sure. For sure. So I love it, man. So how's everything with you? How's your week been going?
It's been busy, man, working double overtime shifts. I've been working like double shifts the last few days. It's been a grind, but I can't complain about it, man. But speaking of
Debo money.
Making that Debo money, bro. But speaking of that Debo money, bro, what about the draft? What was on your mind about the draft, man? Give me your thoughts and some grades of those players, man. Like, I'm pretty sure you had some good analysts about it, man.
Yeah, so, I haven't really done the grades because I actually wasn't too surprised by anything in the draft. And the reason for that, CG, is just I think it was pretty on par with what the 49ers have shown that they do. Usually in the first 3 rounds, you see them kind of pick players or reach for players at positions that they deem of need that may not be on the radar of other teams. Like last year, we saw them kind of reach in the second round for a guy like Aaron Banks that nobody really had going to the 49ers. And then they went up and they got, a guy like Trey Sermon that nobody was really looking at to the 49ers. They did a similar thing this year by getting Davis Price in the 3rd round at a position that most people thought they would probably pick a little bit lower, but that's all pretty on par with what the 49ers do. I'm just a big fan of this regime and how they draft overall. So, you see guys like Buford, who, you've interviewed on your channel, guy like Womack that they got later on in the draft as well. That seems to be, a perfect match for what the 49ers are looking for, and might be one of the bigger steals in the draft based off of what his performance and has been in college and just how he's going to fit there. And then just their undrafted free agent class, CG, was phenomenal, man. The Jason Poe and Donovan West were 2 guys that I had mocked to them in like earlier rounds, like after actually drafted using draft picks on them. They were able to get both of those guys in undrafted free agents. To me, overall, I think that there's going to be a lot of productive players that from this draft, and that's common with every single one of the 49ers draft. They seem to just get guys that fit in with the team, that are there for the most part long term. And I don't think that there's any different from what we saw in this draft either.
Yeah, there's quite a few players that you would just be surprised by. I mean, yeah, we go under the box. Sometimes when we do these little visits with these players, it's kind of like a clue that we're not going to tell you who we're going to get, because sometimes the players that visit, we don't even get them majority of the time.
Yeah. And I think that, a lot of people don't realize what the 49ers are really trying to do through the draft. Like earlier in their regime, right? They were picking top 10 draft picks. So at that point, you're trying to get just straight superstars. And, they were able to hit on a few like Nick Bosa. Even though McGlinchey isn't a superstar, he's a productive offensive lineman. But then, when you start picking later, it's more about fit, scheme, and depth. And the 49ers are still able to get all pros. They got a guy like Debo, it's an all pro they picked in the second round. Fred Warner, all pro that they got in the third round. Obviously, George Kittle, all pro that they got in the fifth round. So they're still able to get superstar talent from picks that aren't top, premium picks in the first round. And they're able to get so many productive players that they either flip for more draft picks in the future or just end up being, guys that they could use in their squad, to help win games. And, whatever they do, I kind of blindly trust, just because I just give them all the credit in the world for what they've been able to do in these past 6 drafts.
Yeah, the drafts have been building like a solid foundation. Like the later rounds, we always tend to find some good stud players. Like you just said, George Kittle was a 5th round talent that we just found, and he turned out to be one of the best tight ends in the game.
Right.
I mean, Dre Greenlaw, you can't go wrong. You get him in the what is it, 5th round pick, and this guy he's a good contributor, a good starting linebacker. He can be a starter for any team in the league. And then you got DJ Jones, who to me is like could be a serviceable starter in the league. And then we can go on with these players, man. But I'll tell you what, man. Speaking of those draft picks, man, the running back, maybe due to time, it probably pay off at some point, because when you watch a little bit of his film, he is a physical back. He embraces contact. He likes to hit people. Then looking at the way he played, the offensive lineman at LSU was a little crappy, the way it seemed like. I mean, that's part why I didn't hear much about him, but maybe now that I think about it, it's hard to play through a line like that. And he only had 1,000 yards, so that's not bad.
Yeah, and I mean, you got to look at what this offense is going to look like. So, under the Kyle Shanahan regime with the 49ers, their best rushing year was in 2019, the year that, we end up going to the Super Bowl. That year, they ranked 2nd overall. They averaged about 140 yards per game, and they had that 3-headed monster with Coleman, Breida, and Mostert. Now, a lot of people are looking, okay, well, you had Coleman as kind of like the grinder, the guy that's just like the physical back, and then you had the 2 change of pace backs that ended up getting a lot of those big plays because of their speed. And when you look at this draft room, there really isn't that top end speed guy. All 3 of their top running backs, whether it be Mitchell, Trey Sermon, or Davis Price now, they all kind of fit into that same role where they're volume type guys that are going to kind of beat you up and push forward. And I just think that where the 49ers aren't necessarily needing as many big plays in the running game, because now they have a quarterback that they trust that can actually throw the ball down the field. So I think that, you saw in this draft, the 49ers went after a lot of offensive linemen to create real big competition in training camp. And then they have now a stable full of running backs, right? On top of the 3 I just mentioned, you still have Hasty there. You still have Jeff Wilson Jr. there. So one of those guys isn't going to make the roster of those 5. And I just think it's going to be a bruising rushing attack, CG. I think they're going to really beat people up in the first and second quarter. And then you're going to see in the third and fourth quarter, this rushing attack, those 3 to 5 yard runs that they're doing in the first half are now turning into 10, 15, 20 yard plays. We're probably not going to see those 60-yard touchdowns and, those 50, 40-yard touchdowns like we saw from Mostert and Breida in 2019. But you're still going to see large gashes that are going to force the opposing defenses to put more players in the box because their defensive line is gassed. Now you got a strong arm guy like Trey Lance throwing over the top to guys like Debo, guys like Ayuk, Danny Gray, Jennings. Like it's just going to be a much more balanced offensive attack, and we're going to see more of those larger plays now down the field with the passing attack. Don't need it so much from the rushing attack, which is why I don't think we just saw that speedster running back that maybe some people thought they were going to draft.
Yeah, like the way we've been building this offense is we've been mostly built to run the ball too. But offensively, like you look at the past years of our offense, we haven't been throwing as much deep passes like everybody was expecting us to do. Like before that, you had a Marquise Goodwin who was a speedster. You had an Emmanuel Sanders who would put a top on a defense. But now that you get a guy like Danny Gray in the third round, who everybody was talking about, maybe he had the ceiling, like the top ceiling because of his speed. A lot of his route running was solid. Like they said, a little bit of his drops, but it's not a bad thing. Like it's coachable. And it's, even though a lot of the speedy receivers have some traits, but some of them don't translate to the football field. But for him, it's different. He can play this game like it's easy to hit to this guy.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if Danny Gray is necessarily going to get on the field that much this season, to be honest, CG. And it just kind of is the trend that the 49ers seem to be doing starting last year. I think they're drafting for 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line. So they're just building up that stable. So you see them like a guy like Aaron Banks. He didn't play much last season, but now he's most likely going to be the starting left guard. And because they saw the writing on the wall that they'd probably be priced out when it came to Tomlinson. So you're starting to see that, they got some centers this year. Maybe Mac comes back. It looks like that probably will be the case. So these guys probably won't get on the field this year, but Mac most likely will retire next season. Now they got a Donovan West or a Jason Poe or whomever else that ends up, fighting for that position. They already have that guy on deck that's going to be able to come in, and I just really like how the 49ers are approaching it. I kind of put a video on my YouTube channel this morning where I was talking about, I think the 49ers are focusing on building a dynasty where not only are they going to be able to compete for a Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl here very quickly, but I think they're going to be able to be competitive in the long run as well, CG, much like we saw the New England Patriots be able to do all that time when they had Tom Brady as their quarterback.
It's just the building blocks. It's kind of been a frustrating process, but it's got to do with the injuries under Shanahan. It's a lot to do with us having the opportunities. When we got to the playoffs, those 2 seasons under Shanahan, we've gone further. So I feel like when this team is fully healthy and it's fully at its best, we have the ability to hoist that 6th Lombardi. Like there's no doubt in my mind. But realistically, man, this division is wide open. The NFC West, has it gotten better between the teams? It's kind of questionable. You look at the Rams. They've lost more talent than everybody expects it to be. You look at the Arizona Cardinals. They're making some desperate moves to just get back in that race. Seattle, they're in rebuild mode, but you never want to sleep on them. But the Niners, it's kind of a stalemate, except we're adding more better talent. There's a difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the 49ers are probably, I guess you can't necessarily put them over the Rams quite yet because Trey Lance is still, an unproven commodity. Even though we all have, nothing but faith in him, I think you're probably on the same page as me. I do expect him to be solid and, our quarterback for the next 10, 15 years. But because he hasn't necessarily shown that as a full-time starter yet, because this is obviously going to be his first chance being the full-time starter for a team. You got to still maybe give the edge to the Rams. But if Trey Lance starts playing exactly the way that we expect him to be, I don't think it's even going to be that close. I think the 49ers are head and shoulders above everybody else in this division, given that Trey Lance plays to the ability that we expect him to play.
Yeah, realistically for Trey Lance, I expect him to go through some growing pains because as a starter, he's going to get more experience, and a lot of our fan base is not being patient with this kid. Like, you got to give it a chance. Expectation for Trey Lance is he's going to have his interceptions. He's going to have his moments. But at the end of the day, he's going to put us in positions to where we will be able to win games, or at least put us in a spot to where it's necessary to win games.
Yeah, and I mean, any quarterback is going to have growing pains, right? So, sorry, I guess there's some kind of ambulance or fire truck going by right now, but it's because this show's so fire. CG, they got to put us out, but yeah, I mean, I think that Trey is going to bring a dynamic to this offense that it just has been missing for so long. And I'm not one of those guys that necessarily goes on and trashes Jimmy, because I really respect what Jimmy did to this team. He turned this culture around from a team that couldn't sniff the playoffs to now the expectations where guys are like, the fan base is now back to that mentality where it's like Super Bowl or bust, which hasn't been kind of the mentality here as for the faithful in quite some time. So you got to give a lot of credit to Jimmy. He's been through some tough situations where Shanahan has been flirting with every single available quarterback in free agency, even though he had Jimmy Garoppolo, and Jimmy Garoppolo was nothing but class. So I have a lot of appreciation for Jimmy G and what he's done to turn this team around. But with that being said, I think it's Trey Lance's time. I think he brings an added dynamic that Jimmy just doesn't have, as far as the strength in his arm and the mobility that Trey Lance has. And, I expect that to be able to now compete, because you start looking at how the NFL is looking right now, CG. Really, the teams that are going to be most competitive to win the Super Bowl, you have to have a quarterback that can elevate your team, right? So you saw like what the Bills and the Chiefs AFC divisional game last season. Those two teams were neck and neck, and it was really just which quarterback was going to make the last play when all was said and done. And you saw Joe Burrow basically put the Bengals on his back, take them all the way to the Super Bowl. And then you saw, what the Rams quarterback, I don't know why I'm slipping my mind right now, but what he was able to do as far as his game in the Super Bowl to get the victory. So it's not so much the floor of your quarterback, it's that ceiling now. How much can your quarterback elevate your team? And we didn't have that with Jimmy Garoppolo, because although, we were able to make it to a Super Bowl with him, he's not necessarily elevating the team. He's just kind of not messing up the chances. And then when you did need to make a play, like in 2019, that long pass to Sanders, that probably would have iced the game, and we'd be talking about the 49ers as Super Bowl champs. He obviously couldn't complete that pass. So now with Trey Lance at the helm, we're hoping that we can now compete in these shootouts. We can now have that added dimension where a quarterback can just put the game on his shoulders, make a play, and help in those games where it's just about who has a better quarterback.
Yeah, and that's kind of been the thing with Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, Jimmy is like, I'll give him his credit. He's won a lot of games when he's been on the field. But as far as Trey Lance, everybody wants to see what he could do. I mean, can he be the guy to carry this team? You've seen what Patrick Mahomes can do for Kansas City. You've seen what Josh Allen can do. I mean, you get a lot of these quarterbacks, like kind of like an Aaron Rodgers, and if he can elevate this team, that's all you need. You just need a good defense and a solid receiving core and a solid running game. That's going to be tough to stop. But for Trey Lance, this is a good supporting cast. Whether Jimmy is still here or not, this team is stacked with everything. We have a lot to play for, because the fact that the Rams won the Super Bowl, that kind of gives us something more to be motivated, because we've owned them for quite some time, and then they finally get over the hump. That's gotta fire us a little more that they got to the Super Bowl and we didn't.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's that rivalry that's there. I think, there was a lot of speculation whether or not John Lynch would come back. He had a lucrative deal, I think, on the table to go back into the booth and start commentating on games. But I think, seeing the Rams go out there and win it, obviously we know John Lynch is a competitive guy. He used to play in the league, won a Super Bowl in the league. So I think that probably didn't sit well with him that regime went over there, because that regime kind of started at the same time this regime did. They got a Super Bowl. So I don't think John Lynch wants to leave unless he has a Super Bowl to show as well. And if you look at it, the 49ers have been right there. 2 out of the last 3 seasons, the only reasons why the 49ers haven't been competitive has been lack of quarterback play in that 2020 season when Jimmy Garoppolo was there. They fixed that. They obviously have a younger quarterback that can stay healthy. Maybe Jimmy Garoppolo is still there as a backup. Who knows? We still don't know how that's going to end. But yeah, as long as we have a healthy starting caliber quarterback, and it seems like they like a guy like Sudfeld to be the backup just in case he does need to spot Trey, in case Trey does go down a few games here and there. I think this team has nothing, is really on them. If they play to their fullest ability, I think they could beat anybody in the league. I think this roster is that deep, like you mentioned, and I think they're talented at every level of this team. You're talking about studs there, and that's what you need in a Super Bowl contending team.
Yeah, and the way how teams contend for the Super Bowl is they build through the draft mostly, and they usually get the players that fit the system. Like you look at the New England Patriots, they've done it for decades, and it's kind of like a formula that still works in some perspective. But when you look at the Rams, they're kind of giving you the blueprint, like take all the talent you want and you can win a Super Bowl, just like the NBA does it. But is that a way to do it? If whatever it takes to win?
I mean, I think it just depends on the team, right? So you got to look at what you're good at, what you're not good at. So where the Rams maybe aren't as good as the 49ers at identifying talent through the draft, drafting people, developing people, maybe they realize that that's not a strength of theirs. So rather than trying to go down that route, they just pick proven talent that they could bring in, have them fit in a culture that is fun for, veterans, and, win the ring that way. I don't know if that's the same way the 49ers can. They've tried that, right? They went after guys like D Ford, Quan Alexander. They've done those moves where they brought in, proven talent, and they went out and swung for the fences that way. It just hasn't worked out for all of those type of moves. But then when you look at what the 49ers have been able to do through the draft, how well they've been able to develop the talent, guys like Debo, guys like Ayuk, you talk about all the weapons that this team has on both sides of the ball. Most of these guys are homegrown talent and developed through that. So you can't say the same for other teams. So yeah, a team like for the Rams, just because it worked for them doesn't mean that it's going to work for the 49ers. It just worked for them. Obviously, that works for them, so it is a way of winning, but I don't think that's the only way of winning. I think the 49ers can win just as much doing it their way, and I think because of that, they're going to be able to do that for an extended period of time, which is I would like that better. I don't just want a one-and-done type Super Bowl win, and then the team falls off because their talent's too old or they get cherry-picked by other teams. I'd rather it be homegrown, next wave of talent coming in each year, keep the team young, fresh, with, seasoned vets that are productive on every level. And that's what the 49ers are building.
Yeah, like when you look at the 49ers, like for quite a while, I mean, under this regime, it's kind of been like we've been building as a competitive squad, but it's kind of been like the team that's just fallen short from time to time. And it seems like it's like you like the way we're leaning towards this regime. They're willing to win at any way they can, but man, it's kind of like sickening to just go through this as Niner fans, just to go through that 2019 season where we lost the Super Bowl and then go to the NFC Championship game and go to that downfall. It kind of gives you that bad taste out of your mouth, but it's just, when will we finally get over the hump for once? There's been teams in the past that had to go through losing at that time, and they finally got over the hump at that point. And you could say a lot about New England. They've lost a couple of Super Bowls here and there, but they've been a well-established team that's been competitive year in and year out. You can't say much about the Niners. They just they were peaking. They were coming in at a time where nobody expected them to get there in 2019, and they just shocked everybody else, and everybody just didn't see it coming. But I'm just looking to reach that 6 Lombardi, but it's just kind of like a close, no cigar, at least,
Yeah, but I think that's just short-term memory from the fan base, because there's only one team that wins it at the end of the day, right? Super Bowl is the hardest championship to win in the major sports here in the U.S. as far as team sports, the Super Bowl is the hardest to win. Only one team is going to win it, and it's not always necessarily the best team. It could be the team that's just hot at the right moment, the team that's just the healthiest at the right moment. So there's a lot. It's not just talent that wins it. It's also a little bit of luck, right? So the 49ers over the last 2 decades have been pretty much atrocious when you look back at it, right? Other than the 2 pockets of time when Jim Harbaugh was here, and then now with this regime, the 49ers have been able to be competitive. And this regime has only been around for, this is its 6th year. So in the last 5 years, you think about the team that they inherited. 3 years in, they make it to a Super Bowl. Obviously, they didn't win that Super Bowl. And then, 2 years later, they're on the doorstep of another Super Bowl. And it just seems like that is the trajectory. As long as, this team has health, which you've seen a change in the way this organization has started to bring in young talent that's healthy. They're not going after those unhealthy vets. They're only bringing in guys that have, a good, at least haven't been, severely injured and things like that. Or if they are bringing in an injured guy like a Jason Verrett, it's way low on the depth chart where you're not dependent on him to be your starter from week 1 type of situation. So for me, it's just like, look, I think I'm a lot older than you. I remember watching the 49ers win a Super Bowl. The last Super Bowl that they won, Steve Young threw 6 touchdowns against the Chargers. I watched that game. I remember watching it. I remember, being excited about that. And I also remember the last 2 decades where it's been pretty tough to be a 49er fan because they're not competitive every single year. So CG, for you to be like, this is tough that they're not winning Super Bowls, but you're still watching them play in the playoffs. You're still seeing them contend. It's much better to have to deal with this type of heartbreak than dealing with a team that isn't even competitive and you're cheering for some other person's team because your team's not even in the playoffs. So I think like sometimes we're just, like I said, a short-term memory because just 4 years ago, CG, we weren't even sniffing the playoffs. So I'd much rather be in this situation where we're competing and we're just a piece or two or a caught pass down the line, like Emmanuel Sanders catching that pass down the line away from winning a Super Bowl, or maybe Jason or Tart catching that interception that away from making it to a second Super Bowl. Those are things that are heartbreaking, obviously, but this team is still competing. This team is still going to be extremely good. And we always have a chance with this type of roster, with this type of coaching staff. That wasn't the same just 4 or 5, 6 years ago, where we weren't even if everything went our way, we still weren't good enough to even make the playoffs.
It's always been a lot of the injuries, a lot of this, the way we've been playing through adversity. We've been the team that's kind of like been like ever since 2019, we had a huge target on our back the last couple of seasons. Now that the everything's have changed, the Rams, the Niners, I think this is a rivalry that's just going to go on. Maybe you might see them in the championship year in and year out, just like how you see the Patriots and the Colts used to be, or any other. I think this division is going to be more relevant than the Niners and Seahawks because realistically, man, Seattle's been owning us for quite some time. I wouldn't call it a rivalry until it has some meaning to it, like a meaning to where we go into playoffs and give you a sting of defeat. Instead of winning a division, that's a stepping stone. But the Rams and Niners, it's always been a very competitive division by far.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I mean, the 49ers have tended to own the Rams every time they played head-to-head till, obviously, the last game where it meant the most, the NFC Championship game. But obviously, the Rams just won one, so they have one up on it, But, yeah, I mean, I think the NFC overall, some teams got better. I think that the Vikings are much better than they were last year. So they were a team that didn't make the playoffs last season that could possibly be in the playoffs this season. The Washington Commanders with Carson Wentz there. That's a team that didn't make the playoffs last season that could possibly make the playoffs this season. The Saints are a team that didn't make the playoffs last season. Who knows that if they're going to be able to make it, they have some good talent over there. I think the Eagles are going to be better than they were last season. So it's still, the 49ers still have to dot all their I's, cross all their T's, and still go out there and play a good brand of football. to make it, because there's still they still have to win the games. You're not just going to win it just on paper. But I think we both agree that this is one of the better teams that they've ever put together. I think this team is even better than it was last season, and that bodes well. So it's going to be fun to watch. Every game's going to matter, and we're going to win more of them than we lose, which is always a good sign for a fan of a team.
Well, the way we've been adding depth pieces, like the secondary was one of our biggest weakness last season, like cornerback depth. We were just relying on Verrett when he got injured, but then you look at the way we were addressing it in free agency. Travarius Ward is a guy we just signed, which adds a huge upgrade at the position that we've been lacking. Mosley can just play the other side. You got a lot of other depth pieces. You drafted a cornerback in the fifth, in the sixth round. And you get some guys who can easily be starters down the road. And it's just like the depth pieces just keeps getting better. So it's like last year I was more questioning about that more than this year. But this year I'm kind of like just questioning the strong safety spot. I think the center spot can be fixed if we just wait on Alex Mack,
Yeah, I mean, but clearly the 49ers feel like they have a solution there, because you don't see them panicking and trying to make picks out there, bring somebody in through free agency. They seem to feel like the guys that they have, whether it be Hufanga, whether it be Moore, or whether it be the guy they signed from the Colts. I think it's Odin. No, Odin was the linebacker.
No, he's safety. George Odom.
Oh, Odom. There it is. Odom. They think that those guys are going to be able to play next to Jimmy Ward, or maybe a guy like Dante Johnson moves to the safety position. Who knows? But I think, like you said, maybe they just don't think that they need as good of safety play now that their defensive line is as solid as it is. They have one of the best, if not the best, linebacking core with Warner, Greenlaw, and Aziz there now. Those three are all studs that can play the position at a very high level. Their cornerback play is going to be much better just to start out with Mosley and Ward there on the outside. But then you got Ambry Thomas still there. Obviously, if Verrett could get healthy, you're talking about now if you could start Ward and Verrett with Mosley at the slot, now you're talking about maybe one of the best secondaries the 49ers have had, and you could put that up maybe against any 49er secondary. We're talking back, maybe the only competition is when Sanders was there and Lott and all those guys. So, the team has gotten a lot better, a lot younger, a lot healthier. And then you're talking about where our biggest weakness was last season, CG, was in special teams. And they did everything this offseason to make sure that wasn't going to be an issue this year. They got a new coordinator. They got a lot of young guys. Looks like your lights turned on. They got a lot.
My wife did that by accident.
Yeah, they got a lot of guys like Ray McLeod, Odom, like all of these guys that are specialists on special teams. So I just think they got better on every single level. Yeah, you can nitpick. Maybe there's not a big name or a bona fide starter that people can just point to, be like, that's the starter. But that doesn't mean that the position isn't going to be productive. And, we just got to see how training camp goes.
Yeah, we have to see how it plays out. Like, I think a lot of what we had last year was little weakness, but now that you just said special teams was one of our biggest weakness, and we went all in from the offseason, and then cornerback was our biggest issue. We've addressed it. We went all the way in. We got Travarius Ward, who to me was getting a lot of buzz. People were talking about how consistent he was the last 2 seasons in Kansas City. Mm-hmm. This guy was ascending, so his market value was going to go up a little bit, and the Niners were willing to roll that dice and give him a chance.
Yeah, he's still young. He's going to be 26 years old. He's a guy that plays on an island and is fine with that. He's a press cover guy, who's what DeMeco Ryans seems to want out of his cornerbacks. They're going to be playing more press man. You've seen in the guys they've drafted over the last 2 seasons to play cornerback, they're all specialists at press man, including, this year with Womack, who's, one of the better press man guys in this draft class. It was great that he fell to the 49ers. And, Ward also does some things that were weaknesses for the team last year, in the sense He doesn't make a lot of mistakes as far as penalties. And obviously the 49ers were one of the most penalized team when it comes to pass interference. Ward doesn't do that at all. Like, he doesn't do that. He doesn't interfere. He's able to stop plays without, getting penalized. And he's one of the best tacklers at corner as well, which is what the 49ers look for out of their corners. Their ability to tackle, their ability to now play press man. And can you play these top level receivers without getting penalized? And so Ward clicks, is a check mark at all three of those things. So that's amazing.
Yeah, it is, man. The depth pieces, all that. We've added a lot of good talent in the draft. Hey, I like to give a huge shout out to Jaguayo 56, man, with the $5 super chat, man. Much appreciated, man. Appreciate your support. Appreciate you coming on the stream the other day when I was having one of those ex-Raider players on my stream the other day. I had this Stuart Swagger dude on my stream, and he popped in like the other day.
Nice.
I get some NFL players, bro. That's the best advice I can get you for NFL players, bro. You just have to be aggressive. Take no for an answer.
Don't take no for an answer, I think you're trying to say.
Yeah, because when I played football, I took no for an answer. I took it like a sign of disrespect. When you play this game of football and somebody says no to you, you come up with that mindset and say, I'm going to make you say yes.
Yeah. And to Jaguayo's point, yeah, the 49ers beat both the Rams and the Bengals last season, and both of those guys were in the Super Bowl. So definitely the 49ers, as long as Trey Lance is what we think he is, this team is primed and ready to be dangerous. Like, this could be a team that any opposing team is going to be afraid to play because of how physical this defense and offensive line are going to be, how many weapons there are, and just obviously with Kyle Shanahan's genius and with the offensive scheming, it's going to be a tough night coming into playing the 49ers, which, is going to be fun to be cheering for them.
Yeah, what's even crazy about this, about how this offense is going to be like, since it's going to be all Trey Lance and his offense, man. You're going to see more of these deep passes. You're going to see more of him moving out of the pocket a little bit, something that Jimmy hasn't done much in his career, but he's been able to win games. But what Trey can do for our offense, it's going to be more like kind of like a shootout type of game, or maybe more like we're going to blow the brakes out of y'all and maybe run the ball in the second half and just keep it going, man. Maybe we'll be one of those teams,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much. I don't expect all of a sudden this to turn into the Kansas City Chiefs offense. The 49ers, Jimmy Shanahan, regardless of even when he was the offensive coordinator in Atlanta, they're always bottom 5 in pass attempts per game. So I don't expect the Trey Lance to be throwing more than 25 to 28 times per game. On average, in college, he only averaged 16 passes per game. So it's not like he's a guy that's a volume thrower, but where it is going to be different, he's very elite in the play action game. So that's why I think the 49ers geared up on running backs and offensive linemen, because they are going to try to pound the ball down the field a lot more because Trey Lance that helps him in his passing because he is so good at play action. And then he's just going to take, because if you watch film, Brandon Ayuk is running the deep route, and he's creating separation almost every single time down the field. The issue was Jimmy just wasn't confident to make that throw, and Trey is going to take that throw. So if he does see Brandon Ayuk breaking loose, or if it's Danny Gray or Debo or whatever it is, he's going to take that shot. So it might not be like you just see this shootout, but you are going to see the ball fly a little bit more. And as Trey Lance gets more confident and more accurate, and his mechanics and everything gets to where it needs to be, you're going to see that they have that over the top option as well, which has been limited under Jimmy Garoppolo.
Well, I still think we are going to be more of a run first team, but when it comes to those play actions, you're going to see a lot of Trey Lance throw passes here and there. Like you said, he averages 16 passes per game in his college career, because he threw under I think he threw barely over 300 passes in his college career. So he was a very limited passer in college. So I think that's what Shanahan likes about him, was he can throw the ball, and he's got a good running game and a good supporting cast, and that's what makes him win games. So I think that's the formula how you win games is a good running game, is a good supporting cast, a solid, capable starting receiver who can be a deep ball guy to get the ball. You get a solid tight end who can block and make plays. But I think if we add another tight end to complement George Kittle, this is a deadly offense. Like, you got to pick your poison.
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, they obviously re-signed with Dwelly, so he's back there. So there's some continuity there. I thought that they would pick a tight end in the draft, but they didn't end up, doing that. So maybe they're happy with that. Maybe they use Jennings in one of those type of roles, not necessarily as a tight end, but he does know how to block, and he is a big body. So maybe some of those possession type plays, they just throw it up for Jennings to, get that ball and use him kind of like a tight end every now and then. But yeah, I mean, having enough weapons is not an issue for Trey Lance. Like, he can't go in and say the team didn't do enough to put weapons around him. He has, two, I think, that are going to be, top 15 receivers in Ayuk and Debo. I think Ayuk has a breakout year this year and probably leads maybe the team in passing or yards caught this year. He obviously has one of the best tight ends in the league. He's going to have one of the stronger running games, and he has everything in his favor to be successful. Not to mention a coach that could scheme anybody open. So it's just up to the young kid to get his confidence where it needs to be, continue to learn, and just make smart passes and smart moves. Try to slow down the game for him as much as possible. But when he gets that confidence, all of a sudden we're going to be able to see this offense go at a gear that, like you said, is much different than what we've been able to see with Jimmy.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot different. You're going to see a lot of these risk-taking passes where it's a deep ball, little play action here and there. You're going to get a gutsy decision maker who might make the play that pays off. He might make the play that backfires here and there. But you're going to get a guy who's confident, and the kid, it's only going to get better with experience and the way he's playing. You're talking about 2.5 game samples that he played. So he's scratching the surface. So I get that the media is just going to still stir it up with him. It's gone on with so many of these quarterbacks. I think a lot of it has to do with they're not sure about him because he's the unknown commodity. Everybody's just talking about Trevor Lawrence and those other quarterbacks that were drafted. They're not even thinking about mentioning Trey Lance just yet. You have Rich Eisen, who's a believer. You have other guys who seem to like his upside, but I feel like Trey Lance has a lot to prove because we moved up this draft board just to get this guy. I think the fact that we didn't have to pressure him his first year is going to build him confidence because he's already getting the clear idea that he is going to be the starter, and he's just going to be himself.
Yeah, and I don't know if you caught that interview that Jesse did on his channel, Last Second Sports, where he interviewed the quarterback coach from NDSU. And that coach mentioned that he had given Carson Wentz the advice to redshirt his first year in the NFL and actually sit behind whomever the starter was going to be. And unfortunately for him, in that case, the Eagles needed him to play right away. So he didn't get that opportunity. He also gave that same advice for Trey Lance. And that's ended up being what happened with Trey Lance. So he got a year to sit behind Jimmy and see, a team that made it all the way to the NFC Championship game. He got to be a part of that locker room, part of those practices, part of the preparation. And I think, the coaching staff has now geared towards being able to help a young quarterback be successful. And we're going to be able to see a guy start, even though it's his first year starting. He has all of that experience without having the pressure of some of these other guys that are in his draft class, like a Zach Wilson or a Trevor Lawrence, like you mentioned, even a Justin Fields. A lot of these guys have had their confidence shook. So you don't know because they haven't had too much success. They're coming into their second year and they might have like stuff going on in their head. Trey Lance really hasn't had that pressure, hasn't had a chance to go out there and look super bad or be a failure or whatever the case may be, because, whenever he came in, it was in spot duty, wasn't asked too much or anything like that. So he's going to come in, and I think he's going to be confident. I think he's going to be prepared. This whole offseason is going to be geared towards creating an offense that revolves around Trey Lance, which was much different than last offseason. And I think the 49ers are going to be really successful because of it. And I think we're all on the same page. We're really excited to see how it looks, and can't wait for the season to start.
Absolutely, man. That's what I'm looking forward to, man. This is the positive vibe. We're looking forward to Trey Lance season. That's what I agree with. Huge shout out to my boy Niner by Nature coming by the link, man. I mean, coming by the comments, man. He's got that excitement, man. We want to see what Trey can do, and that's all we can look forward to, man. But that's the interesting part about this offseason. Everybody doesn't know what to expect. I mean, to me, Trey Lance is like the unknown factor because you only saw 2.5 game samples. So are you going to see the worst of them because he's going to go through growing pains, or are you going to see a guy who's going to elevate? You know, maybe this is exactly what we want him to be. We want him to maybe be like this.
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody who's reasonable knows there's going to be some ups and downs, but there was ups and downs with Jimmy, and Jimmy's been in the league for what, 7, 8, 9 years or something like that. So every quarterback's going to have their ups and downs. I think that we can, I don't know if there is a mentality that we don't know what to expect. I'm not going into that. I think that we have seen Trey get better every single time he's gotten the opportunity to play. You saw what the second half of that Houston game looked like and what he did in a high pressure situation. If Trey Lance doesn't win that game or help that team win the game, maybe the 49ers don't even make the playoffs, right? So that was a must-win game. He got thrown in under inopportune circumstances against a team that had just beat the Chargers with Justin Herbert, and they had a big victory, I think, the week before that as well. So they were on a 2-game winning streak, feeling themselves, and Trey Lance came in, did what he needed to do, had a pretty decent game. Were there errant throws there? Yeah. Was there times that it didn't look great? Yeah. But at the end of the day, he put up really good numbers. The team won very easily, and that's what I think we can expect. There are going to be moments where he's going to wish he didn't make that throw, but he has to learn, and eventually it's going to get better and better week after week because that's what we've seen from him.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, I guess this comes from a Rams fan. Huge shout out to this Vermilion Sports Report. Really good dude. Here's a question for us. So I got to push back on the Trey Lance being confident because he got hurt twice last year, hasn't played much, period, in the last 2 years, and the 49ers O-line is not. I don't know. What do you think, man?
I mean, there was a report that just came out. I forget if it was ESPN or something. And they were talking about, they were ranking the offensive lines for the year, like projecting them. 49ers were 8th. And the people that they put on the starting lineup were guys that are probably going to be backups. And they still were ranked 8th. So I think there's this misconception that the 49ers offensive line isn't good. And I just don't see where you could say that. Like, McGlinchey is a first-round pick talent that, even though maybe he isn't like the prototypical like pass defensive like offensive lineman, he's damn good in the running game. Him coming back is going to be a big upgrade over what's been going on. If Alex Mack comes back, you're talking about an all-pro level center. Even though he's not necessarily playing at an all-pro level, he still has the IQ, and he still played very well last season. We have the best left tackle in the game, and then whomever starts at the guard positions looks like Aaron Banks is going to be the left guard. He's a second-round talent that played left guard his whole college career, big body that I think will slide into play very well there. And if the right guard is Brunskill, he's been a starter in this league quite some time. And if he gets beat out by Jalen Moore, you got a young, hungry guy that's shown flashes last season. So how is this offensive line not good? I just don't understand. I think there's just somebody said that, and then that's just been the narrative overall. Like, is the Rams offensive line now terrible because they lost their left tackle? I mean, I don't know if that's what you could say. So I just think that Trey Lance will have confidence because he is going to get all the reps in practice. He knows now that he's going to be the starter, and he has so many weapons around him. And he's a year he's a year more seasoned. He's a year more educated. He's a year more in the system. All that's going to bode well for him. So I do think he's going to be confident. I think the team is going to do everything in their power to make sure that he's successful. And I think the kid is smart enough, talented enough, humble enough to go out there and perform.
Yeah, without a doubt. I'd like to give a shout out to Jake Wild for another $5 super chat. Here's a good question. What do you think, man? So, CG, is it unusual for a veteran like Matt to not let team know of his intentions? I know it's too early, but who do you think will be O-line starter day one? So, are you referring to the center spot? Because I think by far, like, let's say if Mac does retire, do we really go for JC Treader? I don't know. I think that's what Shanahan likes. He likes a veteran, but he probably wants to go with somebody that's got experience and is a proven veteran. So this might be the most unpopular decision. I think they'll go with Brunskill, which I don't like, but Shanahan trusts him. So that would probably be the starter if there was no Mac. I think that would be the guy.
And I think more to the first part of that question is it unusual? I mean, it's not ideal, clearly. Obviously, we would love to have an answer right away, but I'm sure that the team is having enough conversations with Alex Mack to kind of know what's going on. Obviously, we're going to get a decision here because training camp's going to start here pretty soon. So if he's not there for that, then obviously things are probably he's not going to be coming back. But whether it's Brunskill, whether it's Brendel, or if some of these young guys can compete and show that they're deserving of the position. I do think it is going to be a vet, though, because you're talking about the guard positions probably being 2 second-year players. So you wouldn't want to have three rookie or second-year players in your offensive line. That just isn't the MO for Shanahan. He likes sprinkling in youth, but he really likes going with veterans over rookies. We've seen that over the past few years. So my guess would be obviously Trent at left tackle, Aaron Banks at the left guard, either Alex Mack or Brunskill at center. And then if Alex Mack is the center, then I would put Brunskill at right guard. If Brunskill is the center, I would put Jalen Moore at right guard, and then McGlinchey at the right tackle. That would be what I would assume the offensive line would be. And, you could do a lot worse than that. So,
yeah, we could do a lot worse than that. Hey, but as far as like showing love to this Rams fan, I got a surprise for him, but take a good joke out of it before we end the stream, man. Huge shout out to my boy, Ramelia Sports Report. I know the guy personally. He's a really good dude. He's just a little funny. But hey, I got to give him a little respond back for this guy. This guy's funny, but you're going to laugh. You're going to find this funny.
Same old sorry ass man. So long.
I like that.
It's all love, man. But hey, that's what I do sometimes with these super chats. Sometimes, but sorry for Aguayo. I guess I missed the first one, but I'll give him the response, man. But Rudy knows it's all love, man. It's all good. But yeah. So anything else, man? We're about to end it on a high note, bro. I appreciate you being on the show, bro. This was a good chat, bro. And maybe down the road we could definitely go on your channel so I can chit chat with you again, man. But it's a great conversation, bro. We had good topics, man. But I'm going to give you the solo introduction. I'm going to let you say what you got to say. I'm going to take this thing off first so you can say what you got to say, and then we'll end the stream, man. But it was one hell of a good stream we were going by, man. That's all I could say. Wait,
yeah.
It sure was, man. Like, everything seemed like we got a lot of, dude, we think exactly the same way, but I'm going to give you the solo, bro.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity, to have me on your channel. Hopefully there's a new fan base that's being introduced to me. If you like what you see or want to get more from me, obviously, So Real Suneil is my Twitter handle. So I definitely am active on there, respond to any DMs or, tweets as well. And then if you guys haven't subscribed, please go to my channel. It's at So Real Sports Talk TV. Links are going to be in my Twitter, or you could just search me on YouTube. I do regular shows on there. You can find me on different channels and 49er content creations. So appreciate all the love, appreciate all the exposure. thank you once again, CG, for having me on the show. And if you guys want to come over and definitely have you on my channel, and if you guys want to just subscribe to my channel, like, support as well, would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, anytime, bro. It was fun. I had a blast.
I
And
need
as
to get
always,
me one of them chains, bro. And then, you know, we got the Central Cali love too. So we just need to, maybe I get one that says 661 on it or something like that.
dude, you should just order online. They got chains online, bro. Like, you're the Central Valley, bro. Come on, man. We got to kick it one day, man.
For sure. Next time I'm out there, I'll definitely hit you up.
All right, for sure, man. As always, CG Ruthless Sports. It's the real Suneil is out. And you guys already know. Go Niners!